Is Nico Iamaleava the most disappointing Tennessee recruit in its history? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heat and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. I'm going to say yes. And we've got other names that we're going to throw out there. And feel free to give us some suggestions in the message board. Hot will be no, he was more disappointing than Nico. Cold will be no. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you all of mine are going to be cold.
Let's make it, let's do it different. Hot or cold. They're in the same tier. They're in Nico's stratosphere of level of disappointment, even if they're not more, even if they don't beat Nico in disappointment. Is that fair?
Mine are still going to be all cold because of the publicity, the NIL implications, the fact that there was no good reason for him to be gone, that this seems like a PR snafu. So that to me is going to be far and away the winner. But nevertheless, let's dive into it.
And I'm going to say I do agree that he is with you, that he's the most disappointing in Tennessee history because of the money, the rating, and the fact that Tennessee declared open war on the NCAA on his behalf.
Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. All right, here we go, Caleb. You have James Banks on the list. Again, I'm cold, but that was a very disappointing loss for Tennessee. Ended up at Carson Newman, had issues there as well. It was very surprising because came from a great family. You talk about how some people can just be wired wrong. That was probably James Banks. He had all the talent in the world. I think he could have been a Hall of Fame receiver. I think he was that good. It's rare that every single athlete on Tennessee's football team says, that's the best raw athlete, but they all told me that. So he just, something wasn't wired right, man. I mean, he just didn't get it. And I remember Philip Fulmer at practice one day saying, you've got to run the field because of not practicing hard. And he just refused and did deep knee bends, like air squats. And that's what he did on the sideline. And it was basically a big middle finger to Philip Fulmer. I was stunned that he didn't kick him off the practice field right then. But he is one there, hot or cold. He's in the stratosphere. I'll play by your rules.
Yes, he's in the stratosphere. And here's the biggest reason he's in the stratosphere. The stories you've told me, James Banks flaming out didn't just make him a disappointment. The concessions Fulmer made for him with his attitude and behavior played a huge role in destroying the program long term. I've listened to not just you, but some other people told me basically the level of respect that players had for Philip Fulmer after that situation went way downhill. No one considered him a significant authority figure anymore, to the point that, like, look, it was that's when you started to get all the discipline issues after that. No one really considered Philip Fulmer a significant authority figure. And that's why Philip Fulmer tried to erase James Banks' entire history from Tennessee, because he realized he screwed up so bad with James Banks.
Wait, how did he try to erase his entire history?
Basically, a couple of people I know that were on the team in 2006 were telling me that when there was some highlight, you remember in the room, in the practice room, they would show all these Tennessee highlight clips just on video and things like that.
Yeah, but
Fulmer basically apparently went out of his way to tell people, like, anything involving James Banks, keep that off the highlight clip.
Well, that's not Philip protecting his reputation as a recruiter. That's Philip just being mad.
But he was that mad at James Banks. And James Banks, I don't think just ruined, it didn't just hurt James Banks or Tennessee. It torched the program under Philip Fulmer. The slide of the program, I think if you did like a top 5 reasons the program fell apart under Fulmer, you could maybe put James Banks himself in that reason, in those top 5.
I'm not going to go that far. I'll give you that he was the face of declining discipline in the program. And he was the face of, if you're a good enough athlete, you don't have to worry about discipline. So I'll give you that.
That's hot.
All right. Who's next?
The most NL1, and people are mentioning him on the message board, Bryce Brown. Bryce Brown.
Yeah. And then I would argue that from a talent perspective, well, not a talent perspective, but I would argue that, given that he had some success in the NFL, you would say maybe he was an even bigger bust than James Banks. But um, man, I have trouble. It's disappointing, but I have trouble putting that on him because the entire program was in such disarray.
Yeah, I'm cold. As Bryce Brown was Lane Kiffin's selling point, and that was his like baby getting Bryce Brown. But I can't sit there and say if Bryce Brown had stayed at Tennessee when after Lane Kiffin left, that all of a sudden Derek Dooley has a successful tenure at Tennessee. Because I don't say that Derek Dooley's tenure fell apart because Bryce Brown left. Honestly,
Lord, I remember Bryce Brown showed up one time at practice after he had said he's not going to be a part of the team, and this was spring practice. And if you're Derek Dooley, you don't bend over backwards to get a guy, right? But you at least say, "Oh, I saw him over there. We'd love for him to be a part of the team." He was asked about it. And he said he didn't even see him.
wow.
I mean, how did you not see him on the sideline? It was in the indoor facility too, so it's not like they were spread over 3 fields. I mean, I thought Bryce Brown actually was extending an olive branch to like, "Hey, you're not Lane. You didn't sign me, but I don't want to sit out a year. Let's give this a shot." And Derek said that he just didn't even know he was there.
That's insane. That's insane.
All right. So the next one you have is
Derek Rogers.
I don't have him anywhere close to Banks Brown, or especially not Nico.
Yeah, I'm cold on this. Derek Rogers. I mean, the year he was dismissed from the team, Tennessee had a historically great offense that year. The only reason they fell apart was because Sal Sincero was running the defense.
We got some other ones. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Thanks for filling out on the message board. Let's attack those. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air, cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters. Over 50 years in East Tennessee. Let me tell you something. People come out from HVAC companies and they want to sell you a new unit because they make more money. That's not City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. You might just need a part. That's a couple of $100 instead of a few $1,000. More all-time bust brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Okay, let's go to the message board. Khalil McKenzie was one. I don't have him in that category. And the reason is I thought he should have been an offensive guard from day one. And I knew that Butch Jones didn't have the guts to move him. I thought he was out of position. So I thought that was going to be a disaster even during his recruitment.
And it wasn't like he didn't play for Tennessee. So I can't call him like a total bust because he was a defensive lineman who did play defensive lineman and had a couple of productive moments. So like, it's not like it wasn't like a public flame out. So I'm with you. He's not on that list.
All right. David mentions Jonathan Crompton, who Scout had as a 5-star. Rivals had him as the number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, but he was a 4-star on Rivals.
Right. But anyway, Rivals had him as the number 2 quarterback in the country. Caleb, again, I think the coaching change, and it's not just the head coaching change, it was the offensive coordinator change as well. I thought undermined any opportunity he had for success at Tennessee. So maybe it was a disappointment, but I have trouble laying that on his shoulders.
Yeah, I don't put that on his shoulders. One I forgot to mention before we get to a couple others, though. Another big one.
I forgot to mention too that I don't want to forget is Brian Darden.
Oh, Brian Darden, yes, 985.
I know a lot of people who watched him in practice early in his career as a freshman and thought he'd be a superstar. People that I think know football. It was before my time. And then what happened is a lot of those guys that won a national championship in '98 didn't like the fact he was getting that much pub, and they beat the bejesus out of him.
Well, I heard Brian Darden carried himself like he deserved that much pub too. So a few of them decided to lay some wood on him in practice.
We were told that by, I think, Fred White. And then
I wanted to name the one mine that I forgot to because no one hasn't mentioned it yet. But Jalen Hurd. Again, you think it's more he should have been playing defensive end, but the way he publicly transferred in the middle of a season and Tennessee's season fell apart in that moment, like you got like given the fact that he was like Butch Jones's biggest selling point early on, you can make a case for Jalen Hurd.
He was, but he had success on the field.
But he transferred out mid-season.
Yeah, that's not in that stratosphere to me. Travis Cozart would be another one. That's before your time. A local running back who he had issues that I was aware of because I'm from North Knoxville in the Clinton area that I didn't think that he would necessarily be able to overcome. So that was a big concern. Now, Derek also mentions Jarrett Garantano. That certainly has to be in the conversation.
Yeah, Garantano, but Garantano, again, you talk about like situations you're in. Garantano, look at who he played for. He had to play for Butch Jones, then he had to play for Jeremy Pruitt, and he had to play for 4 different offensive coordinators. He had four different offensive coordinators in 5 years at Tennessee. So like,
okay, well, we look back at this one day. If you had a bet, hot or cold, we'll look back on this 5 years from now and say Nico Iamaleava wasn't a bust at Tennessee. He was just under the wrong offensive coordinator.
no, because Nico Iamaleava committed to this offense at the time. Jared Garantano committed to an offense, and then that offense left him his first year there, and then Butch Jones threw him to the wolves. I'll tell you what, a lot of these we're naming. If you notice, it's kind of the situations around him. Nico's a self-inflicted disappointment. James Banks, you and I would both agree, was a self-inflicted disappointment, right? That's on him, nobody else.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Self-inflicted disappointment. Brent Schaefer. I mean, Brent Schaefer.
Yeah, but Brent was not even in the realm of ability that the others guys had. I mean, he was 6'1".
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. But the way
every other player we mentioned had all the tangible.
That's true. That's a good point. So putting all this out there, James Banks seems like the most self-inflicted bust of all of them by far.